I never imagined that one day I would be standing in front of my mirror, wearing the exact style of clothes that belonged to the woman my late husband once loved in secret. The fabric brushed against my skin in a way that felt almost forbidden, yet strangely empowering. As I looked at my reflection, a flood of questions filled my mind. Was I crossing a line? Or was I finally reclaiming something I had unknowingly lost years ago? For women over 55, style is never just about fabric and stitching. It's about stories, memories, and the quiet battles we fight within ourselves. This wasn't just a dress, it was a symbol of the years I had spent comparing myself to her, silently wondering if I had ever been enough. I had watched her from a distance, noting every elegant outfit, every graceful movement. She seemed timeless, confident, effortlessly captivating. But here's the twist. This wasn't about her anymore. As I adjusted the neckline and smoothed the skirt, I realized I wasn't trying to become her. I was trying to rediscover me. Women in our age often talk about anti-aging skincare or elegant outfits for mature women as tools to look younger. But what if they could also help us heal? What if clothing could carry us from grief and comparison into a new chapter of self-worth? The moment I stepped back from the mirror, I knew this was going to be more than an experiment. It was going to be a journey into confidence, elegance, and the freedom to define myself without the shadow of the past. And that's where this story begins. Stay with me, because what happened next didn't just surprise me, it changed the way I saw myself forever. The mistress in my memory. She was never just a rumor to me. I had seen her, across crowded rooms at charity events, in fleeting glimpses on the sidewalk, and once, unexpectedly, in the glossy pages of a lifestyle magazine. Even in photographs, she had a presence that seemed to linger. Her hair, always perfectly styled, framed a face that carried the kind of confidence you can't buy in any store. Her clothes were like her armor, luxury fashion over 60, tailored to perfection, every hem and button telling the world that she belonged in the finest places. At first, I told myself she was simply different from me, a different life, a different path. But over time, I started noticing details, how she wore silk like it was her second skin, how her heels clicked on marble floors as if she owned the ground she walked on, and the way she smiled. It was never wide, but it was calculated, measured, almost as if she knew the power of giving just enough. There's a strange thing that happens when you find yourself compared, silently or not, to another woman. You start cataloging every little thing she does better. I began noticing how my own wardrobe had faded into safe neutrals, comfortable flats, and shapes that hid rather than celebrated my figure. She, on the other hand, chose elegant outfits for mature women that revealed just enough to suggest, without trying too hard, it wasn't just about beauty, it was about presence. And I realized presence was something I had slowly let slip away. After my husband's passing, I told myself it didn't matter anymore. But deep down, I knew it did. Not because I wanted to compete with her, but because I missed the woman I used to be, the woman who once walked into a room with her head high and her heart unafraid. The image of her stayed with me, tucked in the corners of my mind, not as a wound anymore, but as a question. What would it feel like to step into that level of confidence, not as her, but as myself? Could I translate that polished, magnetic energy into something that fit my own life, my own age, my own story? That question began to stir something I hadn't felt in years, and that's when I decided it was time to find out. The bold decision. The idea sat in my mind for days, quietly daring me. I didn't rush into it. Women over 60 rarely make impulsive decisions when it comes to style. We've learned the value of intention, but this was different. I wasn't just buying clothes, I was stepping into a different kind of courage. The kind that says, I'm ready to be seen again. One crisp morning, I walked into a boutique I'd passed dozens of times but never entered. It was the kind of place that displayed dresses like artwork, each piece on its own stand, bathed in soft lighting. I could smell fresh leather from a row of handbags along the wall. It felt like a world I hadn't belonged to in years. A sales associate approached with a knowing smile. "Looking for something special?" she asked. "Yes," I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "Something powerful." I began searching for pieces that mirrored the style I remembered: the silky blouses, the perfectly tailored trousers, the heels that looked both daring and refined. But this time, I made adjustments. I wasn't copying her, I was curating my version. For example, I chose a wrap dress in a deep sapphire blue instead of her signature black. Blue lit up my complexion and softened the lines on my face, an anti-aging fashion trick every mature woman should know. I paired it with a string of pearls, classic, but worn slightly off-center for a touch of modern elegance. Then came the shoes, mid-heel pumps in a soft metallic tone, enough lift to lengthen my silhouette without straining my knees. I remembered reading that elegant outfits for mature women aren't about trying to look younger, they're about refining what already makes you beautiful. With each selection, I felt my confidence rebuild like a slow, steady flame. I even wandered into the accessories section, running my fingers over silk scarves in rich jewel tones. One in particular, emerald green, seemed to hum in my hands. I added it to my pile without hesitation. As I stood at the counter, I realized this wasn't just about fashion, it was about reclaiming space in my own life. I was choosing to dress for the woman I wanted to be now, not the one shaped by grief or comparison. When I left the boutique, the weight of the bags in my hands felt like a promise. And that night, I kept it. The mirror moment. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my bedroom floor, touching the unopened shopping bags like a silent invitation. I took my time. Part of me was nervous. What if the outfit didn't feel right? What if after all this I looked in the mirror and saw nothing but a poor imitation of someone else? But another part of me, the part that had been quiet for too long, was curious. Piece by piece, I transformed. The sapphire wrap dress slid over my shoulders like water. The fabric hugged my figure in a way that felt both flattering and forgiving. I tied the waist sash with care, noticing how it naturally created an hourglass shape without clinging in all the wrong places. A trick every woman over 60 should remember when choosing elegant outfits for mature women. Next came the shoes. The gentle lift of the mid-heel made my posture shift, my shoulders straighten. I draped the emerald silk scarf loosely around my neck, letting one end fall forward while the other slipped back, a subtle detail that instantly added sophistication. In the mirror, the color combination seemed alive, cool sapphire meeting vibrant green, both reflecting a softer glow in my skin. And then, the final touch, pearls. They caught the morning light and framed my face with understated grace. I didn't look like her. I looked like a woman who knew her own value. It was strange how clothing could stir something deeper. As I studied my reflection, I felt an unexpected rush of emotion. I had thought this was about channeling someone else's power, but instead, I saw my own strength staring back at me. I looked timeless, not younger, not older, just beautifully, unapologetically present. I stepped back from the mirror, allowing myself a small smile. This wasn't about competing with anyone, not anymore. It was about standing in my own light again. The woman in the reflection wasn't afraid to be seen, to be remembered, and that's when I knew this look wasn't meant to stay in the safety of my bedroom. It was meant to be seen in the world. The fateful meeting. I didn't plan to see him that day. It had been months since we'd last crossed paths, and truthfully, I thought I was done chasing ghosts. But life has a curious way of arranging encounters you're not ready for until you are. A mutual friend had invited me to a small afternoon gathering, a quiet tea at her home overlooking the harbor. I hesitated at first. Social events had felt complicated ever since he passed. The memories they stirred could be both comforting and cruel, but something in me whispered, "Go." I arrived early, the sunlight glinting off the water as I stepped out of my car. My heels clicked softly against the stone path. Every movement felt deliberate, intentional. My sapphire wrap dress caught the light in just the right way, and the emerald scarf moved gently in the breeze. The air seemed to hold its breath with me. When I walked inside, laughter and the scent of freshly baked scones filled the room. I greeted familiar faces, exchanging warm embraces, and then, across the room, I saw him. It wasn't the man I had once called my husband. He was gone. This was his brother, a man who had known us both for decades, who had loved and defended him fiercely. The moment his eyes fell on me, he froze mid-conversation. There was recognition, yes, but also something else, a flicker of surprise as though he was seeing me for the first time. He crossed the room slowly, almost cautiously. "You look incredible," he said, his voice carrying both admiration and disbelief. "Thank you," I replied, smiling without apology. "I don't think I've ever seen you like this," he continued. "It's powerful, elegant, timeless." His gaze softened. "You remind me of—" He stopped himself, but I knew. He was thinking of her. And yet, I could tell. It wasn't her he saw standing in front of him. It was me. That realization settled over me like a warm, steadying light. For years, the shadow of that other woman had loomed over my self-image, an unspoken comparison I could never quite escape. But in that moment, I understood something. I wasn't dressed as her. I was dressed as the most confident version of myself. The way he looked at me confirmed it, not with pity, not with nostalgia, but with genuine respect. The rest of the afternoon flowed easily. We shared stories, sipped tea, and I noticed the way others in the room engaged with me differently. There's a certain magnetism that comes when a woman wears her confidence like a second skin. It's impossible to fake and even harder to ignore. Fashion that empowers older women isn't just about trends. It's about presence, energy, and self-belief. As I left, his brother walked me to the door. "Whatever you're doing," he said with a half smile, "don't stop." Driving home, I felt lighter than I had in years. That outfit wasn't a disguise, it was a declaration, and it was only the beginning. Freeing myself from the shadows. The day after the gathering, I woke up with an unusual lightness in my chest. It wasn't just because of the compliments or the way people looked at me. It was because, for the first time in years, I felt like I had stepped out of a role I didn't realize I'd been playing. The role of the quiet widow who had surrendered her place in the spotlight. That outfit, that moment had been more than just an experiment. It was a mirror showing me that the only shadow holding me back was my own. For so long, I had been cautious with my appearance. My wardrobe had been built for blending in, muted tones, safe silhouettes, and shoes designed purely for practicality. There's nothing wrong with comfort, but somewhere along the way, I had equated it with invisibility. And invisibility, I realized, had slowly dimmed my sense of self. Reclaiming my style was about more than just luxury fashion over 60. It was about rewriting the narrative I told myself every morning when I got dressed. The dress, the scarf, the pearls, they weren't there to copy someone else. They were there to remind me of the woman I could still be, vibrant, elegant, and entirely in control of her own story. That week, I began small changes in my daily routine. I started laying out my clothes the night before, not just for convenience, but to choose with intention. I added color back into my wardrobe, deep jewel tones, crisp whites, and warm neutrals that flattered my skin tone. I experimented with accessories, a silk belt here, a vintage brooch there. Little touches that turned ordinary outfits into elegant outfits for mature women with personality. I also began caring for my skin differently. I invested in anti-aging skincare products that made me feel pampered, not pressured. My morning ritual became a time of self-connection rather than just a checklist. Each of these choices built on the next. Confidence isn't something you wake up with one day, it's something you practice. And with each small, deliberate decision, I was stepping further away from the shadow of the past and deeper into the light of my own identity. When I looked in the mirror now, I didn't see the woman who once competed with a mistress. I saw a woman who dressed for herself, who valued herself, and who knew that beauty after 60 wasn't about pretending to be younger. It was about embracing the elegance of who you are today. And that truth was worth every step of the journey. Building a signature style. After 60. Once I understood that my style was mine to define, the next step was making it unmistakably my own. For women over 60, personal style isn't just about keeping up with trends. It's about curating a look that speaks for you before you say a word. A signature style acts like a quiet introduction. It tells people who you are, what you value, and how you want to be remembered. And the best part, you get to decide all of it. I started with color. For years, I'd hidden in dark neutrals because they felt safe. But safety can be forgettable. Now I gravitate toward jewel tones, emerald, sapphire, deep amethyst, that light up my complexion and project confidence. When I do wear neutrals, I choose warm taupe or crisp ivory rather than flat beige or lifeless gray. The right colors can be the most effortless anti-aging fashion tip there is. Then came the silhouettes. I learned that the perfect cut doesn't just flatter the body, it changes how you carry yourself. Wrap dresses, tailored blazers, and wide-leg trousers became my staples. They allow movement, feel comfortable, and create strong, balanced lines. A well-fitted jacket, for example, instantly sharpens an outfit while drawing the eye upward toward the face. An elegant outfit for mature women trick that works for almost everyone. Accessories became my playground. I invested in a few high-quality pieces, pearls, gold hoops, silk scarves that I could wear in multiple ways. A scarf draped over one shoulder transforms a simple dress. A statement brooch adds a focal point to a coat. These details make an outfit feel intentional rather than accidental. Hair and makeup also became part of the equation. I stopped chasing youthful trends that didn't suit my features and instead focused on styles that framed my face beautifully. A softly layered haircut, subtle highlights, and a polished blowout give me a finished look without screaming for attention. The same goes for makeup. Creamy blush, a hint of eyeliner, and a flattering lipstick shade are far more powerful than a heavy hand. But perhaps the most important part of building a signature style after 60 is consistency. The more you dress in alignment with your chosen colors, cuts, and accessories, the more people begin to associate that style with you. It becomes your visual calling card. I realized that I no longer needed to reference anyone else's wardrobe, not the mistress's, not a magazine model's. My style was now rooted in my own story, my own comfort, and my own power. Every outfit I chose was a reminder. I wasn't just getting dressed for the day, I was stepping into the best version of myself. And the more I committed to that, the more the outside world responded. Not just with compliments, but with the kind of respect you can't buy. Conclusion: dressing to love yourself. Looking back, I realized that this journey was never really about a dress, or even about the woman who once stood in my shadow. It was about stepping out of that shadow for good. When I first put on that sapphire wrap dress and emerald scarf, I thought I was testing a theory, seeing if I could borrow some of her confidence. But what I discovered was far more powerful. I had my own. It had simply been buried under years of playing small, of choosing safety over visibility. We often hear about elegant outfits for mature women, anti-aging skincare, and age-appropriate fashion, but those phrases only matter if they make you feel like yourself. confidence isn't about fitting into a mold. It's about creating one that's shaped by your own life, values, and personality. When your clothes, your hair, and even the way you carry yourself reflect who you truly are, it changes how the world responds to you. Since that day, getting dressed has become an act of self-love. Each morning, I choose pieces that remind me I'm still vibrant, still visible, still worthy of being seen. Some days that means a tailored blazer and heels. Other days, a flowing dress and flats. The style isn't the point, the intention is. And here's what I've learned. At any age, we have the power to reinvent how we show up in the world. Style is simply one of the most beautiful tools we have to do it. So, to every woman watching this, especially those of you over 60, don't wait for permission to step into your own light. You've earned the right to wear what makes you feel alive. And when you do, you'll find that the most important reaction isn't from anyone else. It's the one you see in the mirror, because dressing to love yourself is the most timeless style of all.